Welcome to our channel The Shadow Tales.
Today's topic is about Pedro Lopez, aka Monster of the Andes. Who was Pedro Lopez? Pedro Lopez was born on October 8, 1948, in Santa Isabel, Colombia. His father, Medardo Reyes, was a member of the country's right-wing party who was killed in La Violencia, the armed conflict of the era that would have repercussions for years to come. Lopez's mother Benilda was 3 months pregnant with her son at the time of his father's death. Pedro, who was reportedly the seventh child among 13 siblings, was polite as a boy and wanted to be a teacher according to his mother. But Lopez later said his mother was physically abusive and a sex worker who also was assaulted by clients. Some reports have claimed that he was kicked out of the house by Benilda after fondling a younger sister, while other accounts say he ran away. Lopez traveled to Bogotá, the capital city of Colombia, where he became one of the homeless children known as gamines. He eventually joined a gang and smoked bazuco, an impure form of cocaine. While on the streets, a stranger approached Lopez and offered him a bed, but instead took the youngster to an abandoned building and sexually assaulted him. When he was 10 years old, Lopez said that an elderly American couple found him on the streets and gave him a home, enrolling him at a school for orphans. But while there, Lopez was molested by a teacher when he was 12, and he thus ran away once again. Lopez would eventually speak of wanting vengeance for his suffering as a child. Having grown up on the streets, Lopez was arrested at 21 years old for stealing a car. Soon after his imprisonment, he was raped by at least 2 men and in retaliation killed his attackers with a makeshift knife. Accounts differ on whether he received additional jail time for the murders. Upon his release from prison in 1978, Pedro Lopez traveled to Peru with a newly acquired taste for blood. He had also developed an intense hatred for his mother, and by proxy, other women, and a distorted objectification of women due to a porn addiction, according to La Vanguardia. But instead of targeting his mother or other adult women, Lopez decided to start kidnapping and killing young girls in the Ayacucho region of Peru. Lopez later explained that he started by abducting girls from the nearby indigenous communities, especially those in the more remote areas. He offered the young children gifts if they came along with him, specifically targeting the ones with a certain look of innocence. After luring a victim away from her loved ones and local community, Lopez explained, "I would take her to a secret hideaway where prepared graves waited. I cuddled them and then raped them at sunrise. At the first sign of light I would get excited. I forced the girl into sex and put my hands around her throat. When the sun rose I would strangle her." Lopez delighted in watching a certain light go out in his victims' eyes, but his murderous rituals didn't end with the young girls' deaths. He would then violate their dead bodies before hiding or burying the corpses before he went after his next victims. He also noted that he never kidnapped or killed white girls because their parents were too watchful. He would later claim that during this period in Peru, he murdered more than 100 girls between the ages of 9 and 12, which would eventually earn him the moniker Monster of the Andes. This string of murders only came to a halt because a group of Ayacucho's indigenous people discovered Lopez as he was attempting to lure away a 9-year-old girl from their community. "Indians in Peru had me tied up and buried in sand to my neck when they found what I had been doing to their daughters," Lopez recalled of his near-death experience. "They had placed syrup on me and were going to let me be eaten by ants. But an American missionary lady came by in her jeep and promised them she would turn me over to the police." The Ayacuchos reluctantly agreed to let the woman take Lopez to the police, dug him up, and returned his belongings to him. But as Lopez and the American woman walked away, some accounts say she never handed him over to the police. Other accounts say that Lopez was handed over, but managed to escape as he was being sent over to Ecuador. In the late 1970s and 1980s, more and more young girls were disappearing as Pedro Lopez had moved on to Colombia and Ecuador. However, without any bodies, most police officers assumed that the disappearances were related to human trafficking or child runaways, not a serial killer. But, as 9 News reported, their opinion changed in 1979, when a flash flood in Ambato, Ecuador revealed the bodies of 4 young girls. Lopez continued the murders and by the late 70s had made his way to Ecuador, where scores of girls began to go missing as well. Families tried to find the girls on their own, with one mother putting ads in newspapers about her missing daughter. In the Ambato region in 1980, vendor Carlina Ramon and a group of her peers caught him in Ecuador when he attempted to lure Ramon's daughter from a busy market. Once Lopez was in police custody, he initially refused to cooperate with authorities until investigator Pastor Cordova Gudinho went undercover as a fellow inmate. Gaining Lopez's trust, Gudinho was able to get a confession from Lopez as well as details about sites where the victims were buried. Police ultimately unearthed 57 bodies. Coupled with his confessions, Lopez was charged with 110 murders. He He claimed to have been responsible for around 200 more deaths in the neighboring countries of Peru and Colombia. On July 31, 1981, 33-year-old Lopez pleaded guilty to the murders of 57 girls and was imprisoned in Ambato, where he was officially diagnosed as a sociopath. Because of Ecuador's laws, Lopez only received a maximum sentence of 16 years. Much to the public's enormous outrage, Ecuador would later change its maximum prison sentence to 25 years. On August 31, 1994, Lopez was released from Garcia Moreno prison after serving 14 years, having been released 2 years early for good behavior. He was summarily deported to Colombia, where authorities there attempted to convict him of a 2 decades-old murder. But instead, Lopez was declared insane and, in 1995, institutionalized in a psychiatric facility. In February 1998, he was declared sane and released under $50 bail with additional stipulations. He visited his elderly mother, who said that he asked for his inheritance and then, upon being informed of her poverty, sold her soul bed and chair to people on the street. Lopez then vanished, with concerns having risen about his possible connection to a 2002 murder. His whereabouts are unknown. So that's it for today on the topic of Pedro Lopez aka Monster of Andes. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, share and subscribe.